Stop. That's my grandma's house. The wrecking ball didn't slow down. It didn't hesitate. It slammed straight through the front wall like the place meant nothing. The sound was violent, wood snapping, glass exploding, bricks tearing apart like paper. In less than 3 seconds, 60 years of memories were reduced to dust. I just stood there, frozen. The smell hit next. Pulverized drywall mixed with diesel fumes and something burnt, like history being erased in real time. Pieces of the living room I grew up in were scattered across the lawn. The window my grandmother used to wave from, gone. The front door I walked through 1,000 times as a kid, obliterated. And then I heard it. Clapping, slow, loud, deliberate. I turned, and there she was, Delilah Ashworth, standing on my lawn in a perfectly pressed designer blazer, smiling like she was watching fireworks instead of a home being destroyed. Her sunglasses reflected the wrecking ball swinging back for another hit. "Should have paid your $127 dues, Rex," she shouted over the roaring machine. $127. That's what she reduced my grandmother's entire life to. Another crash. The second swing tore deeper into the house, sending a cloud of dust into the air so thick it felt like I couldn't breathe. Somewhere inside that collapsing structure were photo albums, birthday cards, old furniture she refused to replace, pieces of a life that actually meant something. And she was enjoying it, laughing, smiling, watching, like she'd already won. People had started gathering, neighbors lining the street, whispering, watching the destruction like it was some kind of neighborhood event. No one stepped in. No one said a word. Because this was the HOA, and Delilah. She was the HOA. But as I stood there, watching everything I loved crumble into nothing, something inside me shifted. Because Delilah Ashworth didn't just make a mistake that day. She made the biggest mistake of her life. She thought this was about $127. She thought I was just another homeowner she could push around. She thought she could destroy my house, and I'd just take it. What she didn't know, what none of them knew, was exactly who they had just declared war on. You ever walk into a place and feel like time just stops? That's what my grandma's house used to feel like. Before the wrecking ball, before the dust, before Delilah turned it into a crime scene. That house wasn't just wood and drywall, it was everything. I spent my childhood summers there, running through the hallway in socks, sliding across that same living room floor that now exists in pieces across the yard. The kitchen still smelled like cinnamon and old recipes she never wrote down. Every corner had a story, and every story had her in it. Her name was Rosalie. She built that life from nothing, bought that house back in 1962 with money she saved working double shifts, raising a family, never asking anyone for help. That place stood for 6 decades, survived storms, recessions, even a fire once in the 80s, but it didn't survive the HOA. 3 weeks ago I inherited it, not because I wanted to, but because I had no one left. I lost my wife Sarah 2 years ago. Cancer, fast, brutal, unforgiving. One day we were planning retirement. The next I was picking out a headstone. After that, everything just felt empty. The silence in my old house was unbearable. So I came here, back to the only place that still felt like home. The plan was simple. Fix it up, take my time, maybe finally slow life down a little. Sarah used to say, "A house should be a home, not an investment." I held on to that. This place wasn't about money, it was about starting over. But Willowbrook Estates? This neighborhood doesn't believe in home. It believes in control, perfect lawns, identical mailboxes, rules for everything, from the shade of your curtains to how long your trash can be visible. And at the center of it all, Delilah Ashworth, HOA president, self-appointed queen of suburban perfection. People didn't talk about her. They whispered, like saying her name too loud might get you fined. She ran the neighborhood like a private kingdom, and everyone else just complied. At first, I didn't think much of it, until the letter came. Simple envelope, clean print, claimed I owed $127 in unpaid HOA dues. I remember staring at that number, almost laughing. It felt so small, so insignificant. I figured it was a mistake, something that could be cleared up with one phone call. I had no idea that $127 was the beginning of everything, because that wasn't a bill. It was bait. You ever get that feeling, when something small just doesn't sit right? That's exactly what $127 felt like. Not scary, not urgent, just off. So I did what any normal person would do. I picked up the phone and called the HOA to clear it up. Simple mistake, right? Pay it, move on, forget about it. That's when I heard her voice for the first time. "Rex, honey," Delilah said, sweet as syrup, but there was something underneath it, something sharp. "I'm afraid those dues have accumulated penalties." Penalties? For late fees, administrative costs, and compliance processing, she continued smoothly. "Your balance is now $2,947. I actually pulled the phone away from my ear and looked at it. $2,000 for $127, I asked. "Oh, it adds up quickly when residents ignore their responsibilities," she replied, like she'd rehearsed that line 100 times. Ignore. I had just inherited the house. "I'd like documentation of those charges," I said, keeping my voice calm. "Of course, sweetie. I'll send everything right over." She didn't. The next day I called again. "Computer issues," she said. Day after that. "Our accountant is out sick." Next. "Files are in storage." Every time I asked for proof, there was a new excuse. Always polite, always smiling through her voice. Always stalling. That's when the number changed again. $2,147 became $4,100, then $5,600, like it was growing on its own. And then the question started, casual at first. "So, Rex, what kind of work do you do?" she asked during one call, her tone lighter than usual. "Government work," I said. "Oh, must keep you busy." "It does." "Travel a lot?" I didn't think much of it at the time. Just small talk, right? But looking back, she wasn't making conversation. She was collecting information, mapping my schedule, figuring out when I'd be gone and how long I'd be away. Because a week later, I got another notice. Final warning. The balance had jumped again, now over $8,000. Threats of legal action, property violations, immediate compliance required, still no documentation, still no proof, just pressure, relentless, calculated pressure, and that's when it finally clicked. This wasn't about dues. No one escalates $127 into thousands without a reason. No, this was something else. Something planned, something deliberate, because while I was trying to solve a billing issue, Delilah Ashworth was setting a trap, and I had just walked straight into it. Ever had that moment where everything goes wrong, and you weren't even there to stop it? That's exactly how they did it. Not by accident, not by mistake, but perfectly timed. I was 3 hours away in Denver, stuck in a federal meeting I couldn't leave when Delilah made her move. While I was sitting in a conference room surrounded by paperwork and policy discussions, she was holding her own little meeting back in Willowbrook. Emergency HOA board session. That's what the notice said. Held at 2 p.m. on a Wednesday. Funny thing is, I never got that notice. But according to the meeting minutes I later found crumpled in my damaged mailbox, the decision was unanimous. 4 votes. 0 opposition. 1 member absent. Guess who that was? They declared my house a community safety hazard. Immediate structural threat. Required urgent action. Emergency demolition approved, all without me even knowing it was happening. By the time my phone finally buzzed with a missed call notification, it was already too late. I tried calling back. No answer. Tried again. Straight to voicemail. Then came the photo. A neighbor sent it. At first, I didn't understand what I was looking at. Just dust, debris, a crowd gathering, something large swinging in the air. Then it hit me. That wasn't just any house. That was my house. I left that meeting so fast I didn't even remember what I said to excuse myself. The drive back felt like it took years. Every red light, every mile, felt like the universe was slowing me down on purpose. And when I finally turned onto Maple Street, I saw it, the wrecking ball mid-swing, the front half of the house gone, not damaged, not under repair, gone. Exposed rooms, broken walls, insulation hanging like torn fabric in the wind. My childhood living room opened to the street like some kind of exhibit, strangers standing around watching like it was entertainment. And right there in the middle of it all, Delilah, clipboard in hand, perfect posture, calm, composed, in control. I walked up, barely processing what I was seeing. "What the hell is this?" I demanded. She didn't even flinch. "Emergency remediation, Rex," she said smoothly. "Your property posed a risk to the community." "A risk?" I repeated, staring at the ruins of my home. She nodded like she was explaining something obvious to a child. "You were notified." "No, I wasn't." "You had time to comply." "No, I didn't." "You ignored multiple warnings." That's when it hit me. This wasn't just abuse of power. This was theft. Legal-sounding words covering something completely illegal. They didn't fix my house. They didn't protect the community. They took a wrecking ball to my life and called it procedure. You know what's scarier than losing your house, realizing it wasn't an accident? It was a setup. At first, I did what anyone would do. I tried to process it. Insurance calls, damage assessments, standing in what used to be my living room, breathing in dust and insulation, trying to figure out how something like this even happens. But something kept bothering me. One question that wouldn't go away. Where were the permits? Because I've seen real emergency demolitions before. They're messy, chaotic. But one thing they always have? Paperwork. So the next morning I went down to the county office. Old building, fluorescent lights, the kind of place where time moves slower than it should. I filled out a request for any permits tied to my property, demolition, structural hazard, emergency authorization, anything. Then I waited. 30 minutes later, the clerk came back with a thin folder. Too thin. I opened it. Nothing. No permits, no approvals, no emergency filings, not even a request, just empty space where legal authority was supposed to be. That's when it hit me. Delilah didn't bend the rules. She skipped them completely, and suddenly, everything made sense. The fake urgency, the missing documentation, the way they rushed it while I was out of town. This wasn't about safety, it was about control. But it got worse, because once I started digging, I didn't stop. I pulled business records, HOA filings, contractor licenses, property ownership histories, and that's when I found the connection. The demolition company listed on the work order, Ashworth Construction Services, owner, Marcus Ashworth, Delilah's husband. I just sat there for a second staring at the screen. They didn't just order the demolition, they profited from it. But that wasn't the end of it, because patterns don't lie. So I checked other properties in the neighborhood, and there it was. Same story. Different victims, sudden violations, escalating fines, emergency actions, forced sales, families pushed out, homes sold below market value, and guess who kept buying them? Shell companies tied back to the same name, Ashworth, over and over again. This wasn't an HOA anymore. This was a system, a machine designed to squeeze people until they broke, then take everything they had. And I wasn't the first target, just the latest one. That's when something changed in me. Up until that point, I was reacting, trying to survive what they did. But now I understood the game. And more importantly, I knew how to beat it, because Delilah thought she was dealing with just another homeowner. She had no idea. She'd just exposed a criminal operation to someone who knew exactly how to take it apart piece by piece. Revenge isn't loud. It doesn't scream. It doesn't rush. The best kind? It waits. That's exactly what I started doing. While Delilah thought I was just another guy living in a half-demolished house, trying to figure out insurance and repairs, I was doing something else entirely. I was building a case, quietly, carefully. Every morning, I woke up to the sound of plastic tarps snapping in the wind where my roof used to be. The smell of mold and damp wood clung to everything. It should have been miserable, but instead, it became motivation, because every broken wall, every piece of debris, was evidence. I started documenting everything: photos, videos, dates, times, every conversation with Delilah, recorded, every letter she sent, scanned, every violation notice she taped to my door, logged, and the more I documented, the more desperate she got. The fines kept coming. $500 a day for unsightly conditions, another $500 for unauthorized structural damage, even penalties for living in my own house, the same house they destroyed. It was insane, but it was also perfect. It was because every single notice, another charge, another piece of proof, another nail in their coffin. Then I made a few calls, quiet ones, the kind that don't show up in public records. A contact in the county office confirmed what I already knew: no permits, no emergency filings. Completely illegal. A friend in media pointed me toward an investigative reporter who loved stories about HOA abuse. And then, I reached out to a few people who had gone through something similar. At first they were hesitant. People like Delilah don't just take your house, they take your confidence too. They make you feel small, powerless. But once I showed them what I had, everything changed. One by one they started talking. Same pattern, same tactics, same outcome, different families, same predator. And suddenly, I wasn't alone anymore. We had evidence. We had witnesses. We had a pattern. Now we just needed a moment, a place where everything could come together. That's when I heard about it, a special HOA meeting called by Delilah herself to address community concerns. I almost laughed. She really thought she was still in control. What she didn't know was that meeting wasn't going to be about control. It was going to be about exposure, because while she was preparing a speech, I was preparing something else, something final, something she wouldn't be able to talk her way out of. She thought she was walking into a routine HOA meeting. But in reality, she was walking straight into a trap. And this time, I was the one in control. The room went silent the moment I stood up. Not the normal kind of silence either. This was the kind that feels heavy, like the air itself just changed. Delilah was still smiling when I walked toward the front. That polished, rehearsed HOA smile. Like she was about to give another speech about community standards and responsible living. She had no idea what was about to happen, not even close. The meeting room was packed, neighbors sitting shoulder to shoulder, phones out, whispering, nobody really knowing why I was walking up there, but everyone sensing something was wrong, or maybe finally right. Delilah leaned into the microphone. "Before we continue," she said sweetly, "we'd like to remind everyone that HOA authority exists to protect this community." I raised my hand. "Actually," I said calmly, "before you continue, I think this community deserves the truth." A few heads turned. Delilah laughed softly. "Rex, this isn't the time." But I kept walking, step by step, until I reached the front, until I was right in front of her, and that's when I pulled it out, my federal badge. The entire room changed in an instant. It wasn't gradual. It was like watching a switch flip. Her smile disappeared first. then her posture, then her confidence. "Delilah Ashworth," I said, my voice steady. "My name is Rex Caldwell, Federal Building Inspector." Silence. Complete silence. I turned slightly toward the audience. "For the past several weeks, I've been documenting illegal activity conducted under the name of this HOA." Whispers erupted. Confusion, shock, then fear. I looked back at her. No permits, no legal authority, no valid emergency declarations. "Nothing you've done here has been lawful." Her mouth opened, but nothing came out. For the first time, she didn't have a script. Behind her, Marcus shifted uncomfortably. Board members froze like they were hoping the floor would swallow them. But I wasn't done. "You demolished a federally documented property," I continued, "issued fraudulent fines, and used intimidation tactics against homeowners to force property seizures." I paused, let it land. Then I said the part that broke her completely. "And you did it to the wrong person." That's when the door opened. Federal agents, state investigators, county prosecutors, one by one, they walked in, not rushing, not dramatic, just inevitable. Delilah finally turned her head slowly, looking at them like she couldn't process reality anymore. "No," she whispered. But it was already over. The moment she swung that first wrecking ball into my house, she didn't just destroy a home. She triggered an investigation that would tear her entire system apart.